The chamber was silent except for the hum of translation devices. Ambassador Elena Volkov stood in the center of the circular room, surrounded by representatives from 17 different species. Above her, the dome showed the stars, cold and infinite. She kept her hands clasped behind her back, her face neutral. She had been a soldier once. She knew how to stand at attention while the world burned around her. The Thar ambassador spoke first. Its crystalline body refracted light in sharp angles as it moved. The human colony at Kepler Station responded to illegal corporate action with violence. 300 Vryn citizens are dead. Elena's jaw tightened. The Vryn tried to seize a human settlement by force. We defended ourselves. Defended? The Vryn representative clicked forward on 6 legs, its mandibles spreading wide. You slaughtered them. Your species shows a capacity for violence that terrifies this council. You come from Earth, a Class 12 Deathworld. Your planet tried to kill you for your entire evolution. You learned to kill back. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Elena had heard this before. Earth's classification as a Deathworld had been a shock to the galaxy. Most species evolved on gentle worlds with low gravity, mild weather, and few predators. Earth was a nightmare by their standards. Heavy gravity, extreme weather, diseases, predators everywhere. Humans had climbed to the top of the food chain by being more stubborn and vicious than anything else. We survive, Elena said quietly. That's what we do. The Dalzim delegate floated in its water tank, its voice bubbling through speakers. That is precisely what concerns us. Humanity has been part of the galactic community for only 30 years. Already there have been 12 incidents of human violence. Your species does not negotiate. You dominate. That's not true, Elena started, but the Thar cut her off. The evidence speaks. This council has debated for 3 cycles. We cannot allow humanity to expand freely. You are too dangerous. Elena felt ice in her stomach. She had expected sanctions, trade restrictions, maybe even a quarantine. But the way they looked at her, the fear in their alien eyes told her something worse was coming. The Vryn delegation has proposed a solution, the Thar continued. One that satisfies justice without requiring execution. The Vryn ambassador moved to the center display. A hologram appeared. A planet. It looked wrong. The atmosphere was thick with storms. The surface showed active volcanoes. Red text blinked above it. Class 15. Deathworld. Elena's breath caught. Class 15. She had never heard of a Class 15. Designation KX-117, the Vryn said, and there was satisfaction in its clicking voice. Gravity is 1.8 times Earth standard. The atmosphere is breathable, but toxic flora covers 80% of the landmass. The fauna includes apex, predators in every ecological zone. Seismic activity is constant. Temperature swings reach 70 degrees within a single day cycle. No species has ever survived there longer than 3 months. You're sentencing us to death, Elena said flatly. We are giving you a chance, the Thar replied. Your entire colony at Kepler Station, all 50,000 humans, will be relocated to KX-117. You will be provided with basic supplies and 3 months of rations. After that, you will be on your own. If humanity can survive there, perhaps you will prove you deserve a place in the galaxy. If not, the crystalline being's light flickered. Then the problem solves itself. Elena looked around the chamber. Every ambassador avoided her gaze. They had already decided. This was theater. How long do you give us? She asked. Honestly? 6 weeks. Perhaps less. The Vryn's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. KX-117 will kill you faster than we ever could. Elena was quiet for a long moment. She thought about the 50,000 people at Kepler Station. Families, children, engineers and farmers and teachers. People who had left Earth looking for a better life and instead found a galaxy that feared them. She thought about Earth. Beautiful, terrible Earth. A planet that had thrown everything at humanity, ice ages and plagues and predators and disasters, and humanity had survived them all. Not by being strongest or fastest, by being too stubborn to die. "We accept your verdict," Elena said. The council members shifted in surprise. They had expected pleading, begging. Elena met the Vrin ambassador's cluster of eyes. "We'll go to your Deathworld. We'll take our 50,000 people and we'll make it work." She smiled then, and it was not a kind smile. "And when we do, when we're still alive and thriving on a planet that's supposed to be impossible, I want you to remember this moment. Remember that you tried to kill us by exile because you were too afraid to face us directly." The Thar's light flickered with what might have been anger. "This council is adjourned. Transportation will be arranged within the week." As the ambassadors filed out, the Dulzim floated closer to Elena's platform. "I am sorry," it bubbled quietly. "I voted against this, but I was outnumbered." "I know," Elena said. She did know. She had counted the votes before they were cast. "It's not your fault." "What will you do?" Elena looked up at the hologram of KX-117, still rotating slowly in the center of the chamber. Storms raged across its surface. It looked angry. It looked impossible. "What we always do," she said. "Survive." The Dulzim swam away, leaving Elena alone in the vast chamber. She stood there for a long time, staring at the planet that was supposed to be her species' grave. Somewhere in the back of her mind, she was already planning, already adapting. They wanted to send humans to hell. They didn't understand that humans had been there before. Elena tapped her communication device. "Get me colony command at Kepler Station. Tell them to start packing. We're moving." "Where to, Ambassador?" She looked at the storm-wrapped planet one more time. "Home," she said. "We're going home." The colony ship broke through the atmosphere of KX-117 like a stone hitting water. The entire hull screamed with stress as electrical storms hammered the shields. Inside, 50,000 humans held on to whatever they could reach while their world shook apart. Elena gripped the command chair armrest and watched the view screen. Below them, the planet revealed itself in all its hostile glory. Purple and black vegetation covered rolling hills. Mountains spat fire into the toxic sky. The ocean thrashed with waves that could swallow cities. Everything about the planet screamed danger. "Gravity reading confirmed at 1.8 standard," the pilot called out. "Air is breathable, but scanners show toxic compounds in the vegetation. Landing zone ahead is the most stable area we could find." "Most stable meaning what?" Elena asked. "Only 2 active fault lines and minimal megafauna activity." "Minimal?" "Compared to the rest of the planet, yes, ma'am." Elena almost laughed. They were landing on a nightmare and the pilot was grading on a curve. The ship touched down hard. The landing gear sank into soft ground. For a moment, everyone was still. Then Marcus Chen, the chief engineer, unbuckled from his seat with a grunt. The increased gravity pulled at him immediately. He stumbled and caught himself. "Well," he said, breathing hard, "this is going to take some getting used to." Dr. Sarah Okonkwo was already at her sensor station, pulling up environmental data. "Temperature is 38 degrees. In 6 hours, it'll drop to -10. The day cycle here is 16 hours. We'll need insulated shelters immediately." "Security Chief Morrison, get your teams ready," Elena ordered. "I want a perimeter established before we unload civilians. Chen, get the prefab shelters online. Okonkwo, I need to know what on this planet can kill us and in what order." "That's going to be a long list, Ambassador. Then you'd better start writing." The loading ramp opened and the first humans stepped onto KX-117. The gravity hit them like a physical blow. Some fell to their knees. Others managed to stay standing but looked like they were carrying heavy packs. The air smelled wrong, thick, and organic like rotting plants and something sharper underneath. James Morrison led his security team down the ramp. He was a big man, built like a tank, but even he moved carefully in the heavy gravity. His team fanned out with weapons ready. Military grade, not the civilian tools the council thought they were providing. Humans had learned a long time ago to keep their best weapons secret. Movement at 2 o'clock, one of the guards called out. Something was coming through the tree line. It was big, 4 meters tall at least, moving on 6 legs with a body like armored plating. Its head was all teeth and sensors. An apex predator. The galaxy's observers watching from orbit probably expected the humans to panic. Morrison brought his rifle up. Spread out, crossfire pattern, aim for the joints. The creature charged. It was fast, despite its size. The humans opened fire. Plasma bolts hit the armored hide and most bounced off. But Morrison's team had fought before. They knew how to hunt. They aimed for the legs, for the gaps in the armor, for the softer tissue around the head. The creature went down thrashing. Morrison approached carefully and put 3 more shots into its skull. The thrashing stopped. Get a sample to Dr. Okonkwo, Morrison ordered, and somebody check if this thing is edible. Above them on the observation ship, the alien watchers were recording everything. One of the Vrin officers clicked nervously. They killed it. They killed an apex predator within 10 minutes of landing, noted in the report. The Thar commander said quietly. But this proves nothing. Wait until nightfall. Wait until the temperature drops and the real predators come out. Down on the surface, the humans were working. Prefab shelters went up in record time. Teams moved with military efficiency because most of them had military training. Elena had made sure of that when selecting the colony. The galaxy thought they were exiling farmers and families. They were. But they were also exiling engineers who could build fortifications, doctors who had worked in war zones, and soldiers who knew how to fight on hostile ground. By the time the sun started to set, a sun that was too blue and too bright, the colony had a defensive perimeter. Electric fences powered by portable generators, guard towers at the corners, sensor nets to detect movement, and in the center, the shelters arranged in a grid pattern that could be defended from multiple angles. The temperature dropped fast. Within an hour, it went from hot to freezing. The humans sealed themselves into heated shelters and waited. The predators came at full dark. Sensors lit up with contacts. Dozens of them. Things that crawled and flew and ran on too many legs. They threw themselves at the electric fence and died in bursts of sparks. But more kept coming. The guards in the towers opened fire, their weapons lighting up the night. In the medical shelter, something unexpected happened. A woman named Lisa Chen went into labor. Dr. Okonkwo left the sensor data and ran to help. The shelter was warm, but the sound of weapons fire and screaming creatures was everywhere. Lisa screamed too, but for different reasons. 3 hours later, while the battle still raged outside, a baby girl was born. She's healthy, Okonkwo said, wrapping the infant in thermal blankets. Strong lungs. Lisa held her daughter close, tears on her face. What kind of world did we bring her into? Elena had come to check on them. She stood in the doorway of the medical shelter, listening to the sounds of combat outside. A hard one, she said honestly. But we've survived hard before. What should I name her? Lisa asked. Elena thought for a moment. She thought about the council's expectations, about how they assumed this world would kill them all, about 50,000 humans who refused to die just because someone expected them to. Hope, Elena said. Name her Hope. The night lasted 8 hours. By dawn, the perimeter was surrounded by dead creatures. The humans had lost 3 people, 2 to predator attacks and 1 to a heart attack from the stress and gravity. But they had held. Morrison stood on the wall as the sun rose, looking at the carnage. We killed maybe 200 of them, and learned how they hunt, Elena said beside him. Tonight we'll be ready. That evening, around portable heaters, the colonists gathered. Someone had salvaged a guitar from the cargo. A woman started playing. She sang an old Earth song about surviving hard times. Others joined in, their voices carried across the alien landscape. In orbit, the observers listened to the transmission. The Thar commander was very quiet. Send this to the council, it said finally. Tell them the humans are not dying. Tell them they're singing. The Vrin officer's mandibles clicked nervously. What does that mean? It means we made a terrible mistake, the Thar said. It means they're adapting. 6 months after landfall, the Galactic Council received a transmission from KX-117. The Thar ambassador gathered the council members in the same chamber, where they had sentenced humanity to exile. They expected to review final recordings. Death certificates. Maybe a plea for emergency rescue of any survivors. The transmission began with Elena Volkov's face. She looked different, thinner, harder. There was a scar on her left cheek that hadn't been there before, but her eyes were steady, and her voice was calm. This is Ambassador Elena Volkov of the human colony on KX-117. We are transmitting our 6-month status report as required by the exile terms. The VRIN representative clicked forward. They're still alive? Current population, 50,217. We've had 68 deaths from various causes, but we've also had 285 births. The council chamber erupted in shocked sounds. The Dulzim's tank bubbled frantically. Athar's crystals dimmed in disbelief. Population growth. On a Class 15 Deathworld, Elena continued as if she couldn't hear their reactions. We have established permanent settlements in 3 locations. Primary colony covers 20 square kilometers and includes residential zones, agricultural centers, and manufacturing facilities. We are transmitting comprehensive geological surveys, botanical studies, and resource assessments. The data began flooding into the council's systems, reports, charts, videos. The council members watched in growing horror as the information displayed. The video showed human children playing in what looked like a schoolyard, but it was surrounded by thick walls. Guard towers at the corners. The children wore light armor like it was normal clothing. They laughed and ran in the heavy gravity like they had been born to it. Another clip showed farming. Humans had carved fields from the toxic vegetation. They grew earth crops modified to survive the harsh conditions. Dr. Okonkwo appeared in this video, walking through rows of plants. We've successfully adapted 23 earth species to local conditions, she said to the camera. Wheat, corn, potatoes, soybeans. We've also begun cultivating local flora after determining which compounds are useful. 3 native plants produce oils we can refine into fuel. 2 others have medicinal properties. We're learning to use what the planet provides. The next video made several council members recoil. It showed massive creatures in pens. The same apex predators that had attacked the colony on the first night. But these were behind electrified fences and humans were feeding them. Marcus Chen appeared in this segment. Domestication is going slower than we hoped, he said, gesturing to the penned creatures. But we've succeeded with the younger specimens. The adults are too aggressive, but if you raise them from birth, they bond with handlers. We're calling them razorbacks because, well, look at them. In another few generations, we might be able to use them as work animals. They're strong enough to pull heavy equipment in this gravity. A VRIN council member made a strangled sound. They're domesticating the apex predators. Humans domesticated wolves, another ambassador whispered. On their own Deathworld. Why are we surprised? The video shifted to construction zones. Humans in heavy exosuits were building structures from local materials. Not temporary shelters anymore. Permanent buildings with thick walls and reinforced foundations. One structure looked like a fusion reactor. Another was clearly a manufacturing plant. We've achieved energy independence, Chen continued. Geothermal is abundant thanks to the seismic activity. We've also built wind farms. The constant storms mean we never lack for wind. Solar is less reliable due to cloud cover, but supplements our grid during clear days. Elena's face returned to the screen. Behind her, through a window, they could see the colony. Lights everywhere, buildings, roads, vehicles moving between structures. It looked like a thriving settlement. We are no longer dependent on council support or supplies, Elena said. KX-117 has everything we need. We have renamed our world. We call it New Reckoning. She paused. The council sent us here to die. We understand that. You feared what we might become and tried to bury us on a world that would do the job for you. Her expression hardened. But we didn't die. We built something, and now we're claiming this world as human sovereign territory, under galactic colonization law. Any ship entering our orbit without permission will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. The transmission ended. The council chamber was silent. Finally, the Thar ambassador spoke. "How is this possible?" The Dulzim's voice bubbled softly. "They are from Earth, a Class 12 Deathworld. They spent their entire evolution learning to survive impossible conditions." "But this is Class 15, the Vryn insisted. "Nothing survives Class 15. Nothing except humans, apparently," a small ambassador said. "It was from a species that rarely spoke in council. We made a mistake. We gave them exactly what they're good at, survival against impossible odds." The Thar pulled up the human casualty reports. 68 deaths in 6 months. Construction accidents mostly. Predator attacks. 3 from disease before they developed treatments. But look at this. The death rate is declining each month. They're learning. Adapting. "And the births," the Dulzim added. 285. They're not just surviving. They're growing. One of the videos was replayed. It showed humans around a fire pit in the evening. The temperature had dropped to freezing, but they wore thermal clothing and seemed comfortable. They were eating meat from local predators and drinking something hot from metal cups. Someone was playing music. Children were dancing. And they were laughing. "Play the ending again," the Vryn said quietly. The technician complied. Elena's final statement filled the chamber once more. "You wanted us gone. We're gone. But we're not dead. New reckoning is ours now. And if you think you can take it from us, then you didn't learn anything from the Kepler station incident. We don't give up what's ours. We don't surrender. We don't break." She leaned closer to the camera. "Earth tried to kill us for 200,000 years. What made you think one more planet would make a difference?" The transmission ended again. The council sat in silence for a long moment. "What do we do?" a junior ambassador asked. The Thar's light flickered uncertainly. "I don't know. We sent them to a world no one can claim. No one can live there except them. We gave them a fortress. No one can assault. We made them untouchable," the Dulzim said quietly. The Vryn representative who had proposed the exile in the first place had not spoken. Now it moved forward slowly, its mandibles clicking in what might have been distress. "I thought we were being merciful. I thought we were giving them a chance to prove themselves or die honorably." "You gave them exactly what they wanted," the Thar said. "A world the galaxy fears too much to touch. A place where they can grow without interference." Its crystalline structure flickered with what might have been respect or fear. "You gave them freedom." The council adjourned with nothing resolved. As they left, the Dulzim swam close to the viewing screen where Elena's face was frozen in final frame. "She said they would send us a postcard," it bubbled quietly. "I think this was it." On New Reckoning, Elena stood on the wall of the colony and looked out at the alien landscape. The sun was setting again. The temperature was dropping. Soon the predators would come, but the defenses were better now. The humans were better now. "Think they got the message?" Morrison asked beside her. "Oh yes," Elena said. "They got it loud and clear. And now they know. We're not going anywhere. This is home now." Below them, in the colony, life continued. People working, children playing, families eating dinner together. A whole community adapting to a world that was supposed to be unsurvivable. Hope, now 6 months old, was crying in the medical center. Her mother sang to her, an Earth lullaby about stars and dreams and finding your way home. On a Class 15 Deathworld, humanity was putting down roots. 2 years after the exile, New Reckoning was thriving. The population had grown to 75,000. Some came from Earth, volunteers who wanted to prove something to the galaxy. Others were born there, children who knew no other home than the Deathworld. Elena now held the title of governor. She stood in her office watching the colony through reinforced windows. Buildings stretched to the horizon. Factories, schools, parks with armored playgrounds where children played under the watchful eyes of guard towers. It was a strange kind of normal. but it was theirs. Marcus Chen entered without knocking. "We've got a problem." "What kind?" "The good kind, maybe." He pulled up a hologram. "We've been refining Deathworld survival technology for our own use. Gravity-resistant materials, toxin filters, gene therapies to help people adapt faster. Turns out other species have noticed." The hologram showed trade inquiries, dozens of them, species offering resources in exchange for human technology. Elena raised an eyebrow. "The galaxy that exiled us wants to buy from us? Apparently surviving impossible conditions is profitable." Chen grinned. "We could name our price." But Elena was reading another message. This one was marked urgent and private, from the Thar homeworld. "This is different," she said quietly. The message was a plea. The Thar were facing an ecological disaster. A predator species on their world had evolved rapidly, becoming more aggressive and resistant to their control methods. It was spreading across their colonies. The Thar, who had never needed to fight for survival, were helpless against it. They were asking humanity for help. "It's a trap," Morrison said when Elena showed him the message. "They exile us, and now they want us to come. Running when they have problems?" "Maybe," Elena admitted. "Or maybe they're desperate enough to swallow their pride." "What's the price?" Chen asked. Elena smiled coldly. "Everything. Full recognition of New Reckoning as sovereign territory, a council seat, and an official apology." She sent the reply. To her surprise, the Thar agreed to all terms within 6 hours. 3 weeks later, a small human ship entered orbit around the Thar homeworld. The team was small, 12 specialists led by Morrison. They were experts in hunting, tracking, and killing things that didn't want to die. On Earth, they might have been called exterminators. Here, they were Deathworld specialists. The Thar representative who met them was crystalline and nervous. Its light flickered with anxiety. "Thank you for coming. We have lost 17 colonies to the creatures. They breed faster than we can contain them." Morrison looked at the briefing data. The creatures were called skrills. They looked like a cross between Earth insects and reptiles. Fast, aggressive, adaptable. They attacked in swarms and their bite carried paralytic venom. "How have you been fighting them?" Morrison asked. "We deploy automated defenses, drones, energy barriers. And they're not working?" "The skrills learn. They find ways through our defenses." Morrison exchanged looks with his team. "Of course they do. They're predators. They evolve." He pulled up tactical maps. "All right. Show us the worst infestation zone." The Thar took them to a colony that had been abandoned. Buildings stood empty. The ground was covered with skrill burrows. The creatures moved in the shadows, clicking and hissing. "Your people evacuated?" Morrison asked. "Yes. We lost only 38 citizens before we withdrew." Morrison didn't comment on how the Thar considered 38 deaths worth evacuating an entire colony. On New Reckoning, they'd lost that many in the first week and kept fighting. "All right," he said. "Here's how this works. We don't hide behind barriers, we hunt." Over the next 3 months, the human team taught the Thar how to fight, not with drones and automated systems, with tactics, strategy, understanding your enemy. They taught them to think like predators. The humans tracked skrill movement patterns, found their breeding grounds, learned their behavior. Then they struck, not at random encounters. At the heart of the infestation, the Thar watched in horrified fascination as Morrison's team moved through skrill territory. The humans wore light armor and carried weapons designed for close combat. They moved in small groups covering each other. When skrills attacked, the humans didn't retreat, they counterattacked. "They're insane," one Thar observer said. "They're fighting in melee range." "They're effective," another replied quietly. The humans cleared the colony in 6 weeks. They eliminated the breeding queens, collapsed the burrows, and hunted down the remaining skrills. Then they taught the Thar how to maintain the defenses. "You can't just rely on technology," Morrison explained to the Thar security forces. "The creatures adapt. You need to adapt faster. Learn how they think, predict their moves, be more aggressive than they are. The Thar security chief's light flickered uncertainly. This is not our way. Then change your way, or the Skrills will keep winning. By the end of 3 months, the Skrill population was under control. The Thar had learned not just how to fight this specific threat, but how to think differently about threats in general. It was a fundamental shift in their culture. As Morrison's team prepared to leave, the Thar representative approached Elena, who had arrived for the formal recognition ceremony. Your methods are brutal, the Thar said, but effective. We are grateful. Don't thank us, Elena said. Pay us. And remember this the next time you think humans are too dangerous to be trusted. Word spread fast through the galaxy. Humanity had solved a problem no one else could. Within months, other species were quietly approaching new reckoning with their own impossible situations. A mining colony on a high-gravity world needed help establishing permanent structures. Human engineers arrived and did in 6 weeks what the other species had failed to do in years. An agricultural world was facing soil contamination that killed all their crops. Human xenobotanists introduced modified earth plants that not only survived, but cleaned the soil. A research station was being harassed by local predators. Human security teams established defenses and taught the researchers how to coexist with the wildlife. Every mission succeeded. Every time humans proved they could handle conditions that other species found impossible. Back on New Reckoning, Elena stood before the colony in the central square. It was the 2-year anniversary of their arrival. Thousands gathered to hear her speak. When we came here, they thought they were burying us, Elena said. They sent us to a world that was supposed to kill us. They expected us to beg for mercy or die quietly. She paused. We did neither. We built. We survived. We thrived. The crowd cheered. Children who had been born here. Adults who had grown stronger in the heavy gravity. Families who had made this Deathworld home. Now the galaxy comes to us for help, Elena continued. The same species who feared us now need us, and we help them, not because we forgive what they did, but because we're better than they thought. We're better than they feared. She looked out at her people. Survivors. All of them. They tried to bury us. They didn't know we were seeds. The cheering was deafening. That night, the colony celebrated. Music and food and stories. Children ran through the streets while adults watched from fortified positions. It was a strange life, but it was theirs. In orbit, the observation ship recorded everything. The Thar commander sent one final report to the council. Humanity has become indispensable. They solve problems we cannot. They survive where we cannot. They have earned their place in the galaxy. I recommend full council membership with all rights and privileges. The vote was scheduled for the following month. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was the reason why. 5 years after the exile, the Galactic Council reconvened in the same chamber where they had sentenced humanity to death. Elena Volkov stood in the center once again, but everything was different now. She wore formal diplomatic attire bearing the seal of New Reckoning. She stood taller, stronger from years in heavy gravity, and she was not alone. Behind her stood representatives from 3 other human colonies, all established on Class 12 and higher death worlds. The Thar ambassador called the session to order. We gather to vote on humanity's petition for full council membership. The floor recognizes Ambassador Volkov. Elena stepped forward. 5 years ago, you sent 50,000 humans to die on a Class 15 death world. You were afraid of us. Afraid of our capacity for violence. Our refusal to submit. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each representative. You were right to be afraid, but not for the reasons you thought. She activated a holographic display. It showed New Reckoning. No longer a struggling colony, but a thriving city population, 112,000, infrastructure, industry, culture. We didn't just survive your death sentence. We built a civilization. We took a world that was supposed to be impossible and made it home. And we didn't stop there. The display shifted to show 3 other worlds. Human colonies on extreme planets. We've established settlements on 3 other Class 12 worlds. Planets rich in resources that no other species can access because they're too dangerous. We're extracting minerals, growing food, and developing technologies in places you can't reach. The Vrin representative clicked forward, its mandibles spreading. This is precisely why we should deny membership. Humanity is becoming too powerful, too independent. You don't need us. You're right, Elena said bluntly. We don't need you. We proved that 5 years ago, but you need us. She changed the display. It showed a list of every species humanity had helped in the past 3 years. The Thar and their skrill problem, the Keln mining crisis, the Yutani crop failure, a dozen other incidents where human expertise had solved problems no one else could. We've become the galaxy's specialists in impossible problems, Elena continued. Because we come from an impossible world. Earth taught us to survive. You taught us that survival isn't enough. You taught us to thrive despite everything working against us. The Dulzim's tank bubbled thoughtfully. The question before the Council is not whether humanity has proven capable. Clearly they have. The question is whether we want a species this dangerous within our governing body. Dangerous to whom? Elena asked. Have we attacked anyone? Have we expanded aggressively? No. We help species who ask for help. We trade fairly. We follow galactic law. She paused. The only violence we've committed was in self-defense or in defense of others. A smaller ambassador spoke up. But your capacity for violence remains. You come from a death world. Violence is in your nature. Yes, Elena agreed. It is, but so is cooperation, community, compassion. Earth didn't just teach us to kill, it taught us to work together, to build things, to protect each other. You see our capacity for violence and miss everything else we are. The debate went on for hours. Some species argued for humanity's inclusion, others argued against. The chamber was divided almost evenly. Then something happened that no one expected. Alarms blared. A new contact had entered council space. Something big. The chamber's displays automatically switched to show tactical data. A fleet, unknown configuration. Dozens of ships moving toward the council station. The Thar's light flickered in alarm. Who are they? Unknown species, the tactical officer reported. They're not responding to hails. Energy signatures show weapons charging. Panic rippled through the council. They had not faced a military threat in generations. Their defense fleet was small and primarily ceremonial. The unknown ships were clearly hostile and heavily armed. Elena was already moving. She activated her communicator. This is Volkov to all human ships in system. We have a hostile contact. All vessels respond. Governor, this is the reckoning. A voice responded immediately. We rid 12 human ships in range. Defense protocols. Protect the council station. Engage only if they fire first. Show them what we can do. The human ships moved with precision that shocked the council. They had been in system, human merchants, and diplomats, but now they moved like a military fleet. Fast, coordinated, deadly. The unknown fleet opened fire on the station. Plasma bolts and missiles streaked across space. The council's shields flickered under the assault. But before the second volley could hit, the human ships were there. They moved in patterns the other species had never seen. Earth combat tactics, translated to space. Covering fire, flanking maneuvers, focus fire on priority targets. The humans didn't have the biggest ships or the most advanced weapons. But they fought like they had been born to it. Because they had. The battle lasted 17 minutes. The hostile fleet tried to adapt, but humans had been fighting opponents that adapted for their entire history. Every move the enemy made, the humans countered. When 3 hostile ships tried to break through to the station, 2 human vessels put themselves directly in the line of fire. They took damage but held position until reinforcements arrived. 1 human ship was destroyed. 23 humans died. But the hostile fleet broke and retreated. The council station was safe. In the chamber, the representatives watched in stunned silence. They had just seen humans fight to protect them. die to protect them, not because they had to, but because it was the right thing to do. Elena was receiving casualty reports, her face grim. The destroyer Freedom's call was lost with all hands. They died for us. The Dulzim bubbled quietly. They barely know us, and they died for us. The Thar ambassador's light flickered with something that might have been shame. 5 years ago, we sent them to die. Today they died saving us. Elena looked at the council. You asked what kind of species we are. Now you know. Yes, we're dangerous. Yes, we come from a death world and violence is part of who we are. But so is loyalty. So is sacrifice. So is standing between the innocent and the threat, even when we barely know them. She gestured to the tactical display, still showing the aftermath of the battle. You can vote to keep us out of the council. We'll survive. We'll keep building our colonies and living our lives. But when the next crisis comes, and it will, ask yourselves who you want standing beside you. Species who've never faced real danger, or humans who've been fighting since before we left the caves. The vote was called immediately. No more debate, no more discussion. Every species that had argued against humanity now voted in favor. The measure passed unanimously. Elena Volkov was officially recognized as humanity's first council ambassador. New Reckoning was recognized as sovereign territory. 3 other human colonies were granted the same status. Humanity was no longer exiled. They were full members of the galactic community. As the session ended, the Thar ambassador approached Elena privately. I owe you an apology. We sent you to die because we were afraid. We were wrong. Yes. You were, Elena said without softness, but we're past that now. The question is what happens next. What do you mean? The galaxy is bigger than this council, more dangerous. There are threats out there you've never faced because you've been protected. Comfortable. Humanity can help with that. But we need you to trust us. Really trust us. After today? I think we do. The memorial service for the Freedom's Call was held on New Reckoning. 23 names carved into stone. 23 humans who died protecting species that had once tried to kill them. The entire colony attended. Even council representatives traveled to the Deathworld to pay respects. Elena stood before the monument with hope at her side. The little girl was 5 now, strong and healthy. She had been born on this world and knew no other home. She laid flowers at the base of the memorial, flowers that humans had engineered to survive the harsh conditions. Why did they die? Hope asked. To protect people who needed help, Elena said. Were they friends? Not yet, but they could have been. Hope thought about this. Is that why we came here? To make friends? Elena smiled sadly. No, sweetheart. We came here because we had nowhere else to go. But maybe that's how we make friends. By proving we're worth knowing. That night the colony gathered as they did every year on the anniversary. But this time, they weren't celebrating survival. They were celebrating belonging. They sang songs, from Earth and from New Reckoning. Old songs and new ones. Songs about struggle and triumph and finding home in the strangest places. In orbit, the council observers recorded everything. They would report back that humanity had changed. Not just survived. Changed. They had taken their Deathworld origin and turned it into strength. Not strength to conquer. Strength to protect. The Vryn representative who had proposed the exile watched the transmission. Its mandibles clicked softly. I tried to kill them. You failed, the Thar said beside it. And perhaps that failure saved us all. On New Reckoning, Elena stood on the wall of the colony and looked up at the stars. Somewhere up there, the Freedom's Call had burned. 23 humans had died, but they had died proving something important. Humanity belonged. Not because they were strong or dangerous or unkillable, but because when the galaxy needed someone to stand between them and the darkness, humans stood, without hesitation, without question. Elena thought about the scared woman who had stood in the council chamber 5 years ago. She had accepted a death sentence with her head high. She had promised to survive. And she had kept that promise. Behind her, Hope was singing with other children. Their voices carried on the wind. Songs of Earth and songs of new reckoning. Songs of a species that refused to die. Hope died, the council had believed. Hope died the moment humanity spoke, but they were wrong. Hope was reborn. Hope was a little girl singing on a death world. Hope was a species that learned to thrive where others could only fail. Hope was humanity proving that no matter how hard the universe tried to kill them, they would find a way to live. And now finally they would live among the stars as equals. The Galactic Alliance had stood for over 300 years. 17 advanced alien species worked together in peace. For decades they fought against the Void-born Collective, creatures who wanted to take over all living beings in the galaxy. Captain Samuel Wright stood on the bridge of his ship, the Intrepid. Through the main viewport he watched as the last line of defense around Arcturus Prime fell apart. His ship was badly damaged. Air leaked from multiple holes in the hull. The Intrepid moved slowly away from the battle, along with the few Alliance ships that remained. "We've lost the Centauri defense grid," Lieutenant Olivia Martinez said. Her voice stayed steady despite the bad news. "Void-born fleets are moving toward the inner systems." Samuel gripped the railing tighter. The Void-born had destroyed 3 major Alliance worlds in the past month. Each defeat made the next one come faster. The Alliance was losing the war. Admiral Diane Carter, now the highest-ranking officer still alive, called an emergency meeting. Representatives from each Alliance species joined through holograms. Their images flickered with interference as the Void-born's disruptive technology spread through Alliance space. "The Proxima shipyards are gone," said Zarkiel, the representative from Thraxa. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of distress in his species. "Our ability to build ships is down by 68%. The Void-born have adapted to our phase shift technology," added Kelnar, the chief scientist from Altair. Her thin gray fingers moved quickly over her datapad. "They've neutralized our greatest advantage." More bad news followed. The Void-born had taken control of the main supply routes. They had infiltrated 3 more worlds. The military leaders, who had fought them best, were dead or missing. Samuel listened carefully. No one mentioned Earth. The Alliance had discovered humans only 30 years ago. Earth was still primitive by galactic standards. They had just begun to explore their own solar system. The Alliance had made contact but kept humans at a distance. The Council found humans too unpredictable, too emotional, too divided. In the SCI meeting room, Admiral Carter made her final assessment. "The Void-born will control all major Alliance systems within 2 months. This may be our final meeting." As everyone began to leave, Samuel approached the Admiral privately. "What about Earth?" he asked. "The humans? Shouldn't we warn them?" Admiral Carter sighed. She looked much older than when Samuel had first served under her 5 years ago. "Earth isn't valuable to us right now. They have no quantum resources and minimal technology. The Void-born will get to them eventually, but we have bigger problems." Samuel frowned. He had visited Earth 3 years ago on a diplomatic mission. While there, he had seen something in humans that the other Alliance species seemed to lack, a fierce determination that bordered on madness. The Alliance had enjoyed thousands of years of peace before the Void-born arrived. Humanity had spent its entire history fighting itself and surviving against all odds. "With respect, Admiral, I think we're making a mistake," Samuel said. "Humans might not have advanced technology, but they have other qualities that could help us." "The Council has made its decision," Carter replied firmly. "We need to focus on saving the core worlds. Any resources we divert elsewhere weaken our main defense." Samuel nodded stiffly. "I understand, Admiral." But as he walked back to his ship, Samuel knew what he had to do. The Alliance was falling. The careful, measured approach that had worked for centuries was failing against the Void-born. Perhaps it was time for something different, something unpredictable. Back aboard the Intrepid, Samuel found his second-in-command, Commander Ryan Kelly. "I need to speak with you privately," Samuel said. They walked to Samuel's office. Once the door closed, Samuel activated a jamming field that would prevent anyone from listening in. "I need your help with something unauthorized," Samuel said. "Something that could get us both court-martialed if there's anyone left to do it." Ryan raised an eyebrow but nodded. "What do you need, Captain?" "I want to send a warning to Earth. The Council has decided not to tell them about the Void-born threat." "Why would the Council do that?" Samuel paced the small office. "They don't think Earth is worth protecting. Humans are too primitive, too aggressive. But I've been there. I've seen what humans can do. They're resourceful in ways we're not." Ryan thought for a moment. "We don't have any ships to spare." "We have the scout vessel in Bay 3, Samuel said. "The stealth prototype. It's small but fast. We can program it to deliver a message and database." The Admiral ordered that ship prepared for reconnaissance behind Voidborn lines, Ryan pointed out, "which will almost certainly be a suicide mission," Samuel replied. "I think warning Earth might do more good." Ryan was quiet for a long moment. "You really believe humans could make a difference? Against an enemy that's defeating the entire alliance?" Samuel remembered his time on Earth. He had visited their military installations, their cities, their wild places. He had seen their art and entertainment, so much of it focused on conflict and survival against impossible odds. The Alliance species had evolved toward cooperation and rational discourse. Humans had evolved as tribal hunters who never stopped fighting. "I do," Samuel said firmly. "The Voidborn adapt to everything we throw at them because we're predictable. Humans are anything but predictable." Ryan sighed but nodded. "What's the plan?" Over the next 12 hours, they worked in secret. They loaded the scout ship with everything they could about the Voidborn, their biology, technology, weaknesses, and battle tactics. They added Alliance defense schematics, weapon designs, and shield frequencies. They recorded a message explaining the threat and the fall of the Alliance. When the Intrepid stopped at a supply station for emergency repairs, Samuel and Ryan used the confusion to launch the scout ship. Its stealth systems activated immediately, making it invisible to Alliance sensors. The small vessel turned and accelerated toward Earth, 700 light-years away. "The ship will reach Earth in about 2 weeks," Ryan said as they watched, on a private monitor. "Will that give them enough time?" Samuel didn't know. The Voidborn were methodical. They would finish with the Alliance worlds before moving to isolated planets like Earth. That might give humans months, perhaps a year or more. "It will have to be enough," he said. The next day, the Intrepid joined the remaining Alliance fleet at Proxima Centauri for what would likely be their final stand. As Samuel prepared his ship and crew for battle, he thought about the small vessel racing toward Earth. He hoped his gamble wasn't completely futile. The Voidborn thought they had won. The Alliance was falling. But perhaps they would learn that the galaxy held more surprises than they expected. Perhaps humanity would show them what it truly meant to fight for survival. General Natalie Owens walked quickly through the underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains. Scientists and military personnel rushed around her, their faces tense with purpose. 2 weeks ago, a small alien spacecraft had appeared at the edge of the solar system. It had somehow avoided all Earth's detection systems until it was nearly on top of them. The spacecraft had not attacked. Instead, it had sent a message before powering down. For 8 hours now, the best scientists from the Pentagon had been working to understand this message. Natalie entered the main lab where Dr. Alan Franklin, the lead language expert, worked with his team. Large screens showed strange symbols and diagrams. "Do we have anything yet?" she asked. Alan looked up, his eyes bright with excitement, despite his obvious exhaustion. "Yes, General, we're getting there. The ship provided a translation system. That works with our computers. The message is from someone named Captain Samuel Wright of something called the Galactic Alliance." Natalie raised an eyebrow. "Samuel Wright? That doesn't sound very alien." "The name is translated for us to understand," Alan explained. "According to this data, aliens have been watching Earth for decades. The Alliance is some kind of space government made up of many different alien species." Alan typed a command, and the largest screen changed. The image of a humanoid figure appeared. It looked almost human, except for pale blue skin, slightly longer limbs, and completely black eyes. "People of Earth," the figure began. "I am Captain Samuel Wright of the Galactic Alliance vessel Intrepid. The Alliance has watched your civilization since your first radio signals. We have kept our distance, allowing your natural development while protecting you from threats you weren't ready to face. That protection is now gone." The alien captain explained about the Void-born Collective, a relentless enemy that had pushed the technologically superior Alliance to the edge of defeat. "The Alliance Council has chosen not to warn you," the message continued. "They believe Earth is too primitive to help in this fight. I disagree. By the time you receive this message, most Alliance worlds will have fallen. Earth is not a main target, but the Voidborn will eventually come for you. This craft contains data on Voidborn technology, weaknesses, and Alliance defense systems. It may help you prepare. I wish I could offer more." The message ended, and the room fell silent. "How long do we have?" asked President Gregory Mitchell when he arrived an hour later for a briefing. Alan studied the data before answering. "Based on the information here, anywhere from 6 months to 2 years before they reach our solar system." The president looked around the room at the assembled military leaders and scientists. "Options?" Admiral Max Howard spoke first. "Sir, this alien technology is centuries beyond ours. Even with this head start, developing effective defenses within 2 years seems impossible." "Impossible?" Natalie cut in. "With respect, Admiral, humanity specializes in achieving the impossible when our backs are against the wall." "President," Mitchell nodded slowly. "Get me the UN Secretary General, the heads of NASA, DARPA, and every major defense contractor. Then reach out to our counterparts in every nation with space capabilities. As of this moment, Earth is at war." The next few days passed in a blur of activity. The president addressed the United Nations in an emergency session, sharing the alien warning. To everyone's surprise, the threat of alien invasion accomplished what centuries of human conflict had not: a unified global response. China, Russia, the European Union, and the United States immediately agreed to share technology and resources. Smaller nations offered what they could. Old enemies set aside differences in the face of extinction. Scientists worked around the clock to understand the alien data. Engineers began adapting the alien designs to Earth's existing technology. Military strategists studied the Void-born battle tactics, looking for weaknesses. 2 weeks after the warning arrived, Natalie visited the new Joint Command Center in Colorado. The formerly empty underground bunker now hummed with activity. Large screens showed projects happening around the world. Dr. Kate Barnes, a weapons specialist who had been working with the alien technology, met her at the entrance. "We're making progress," Kate said as they walked. "The Alliance designs are incredibly advanced, but they're also very predictable. They focus on efficiency and elegance rather than raw effectiveness." "And that helps us how?" Natalie asked. "It means we can take different approaches," Kate explained. "Their weapons are more advanced, but they follow certain patterns the Void-born have learned to counter. Our technology is more primitive but might work because it's different." They stopped at a testing area where engineers worked on a massive cannon. "This is based on their particle beam technology," Kate said, "but we've modified it to work with our existing power systems. It's less efficient but more unpredictable in its energy signature." Natalie nodded. "Will it work against the Void-born?" "In theory," Kate said. "They adapt quickly to energy patterns, but if we keep changing the patterns, we might stay ahead of their adaptations," Natalie finished. "How soon can we start production?" "We're already building the first prototypes for space deployment. NASA and SpaceX are retrofitting rockets to get them into orbit. Similar scenes played out across the planet. In Russia, engineers work to convert nuclear missile silos into planetary defense batteries. In China, massive factories ran day and night, producing components for the new weapons. European scientists developed new materials based on Alliance designs. 1 month after the warning, President Mitchell called the first meeting of the newly formed Earth Defense Council. Representatives from 20 nations gathered in the underground facility. The Voidborn believe they will find a primitive, divided world, the president said. Instead, they will face a unified Earth with weapons they've never encountered before. We may be technologically behind the Alliance, but we have something they lacked, the element of surprise. Admiral Howard presented the defense plan. We're setting up 3 defensive lines. The outer line will be at the edge of the solar system, automated weapons platforms and mines. The middle line will center on Jupiter and Saturn, with our main fleet positioned there. The inner line will protect Earth directly. What about offensive capabilities? Asked the Russian president. Natalie stepped forward. We're developing those as well. The Voidborn have biological components in their technology that may be vulnerable to certain Earth-based compounds. The Alliance never explored these options, considering them unethical. We have fewer such concerns when facing extinction. As the meeting continued, a scientist rushed in and handed a note to President Mitchell. He read it quickly, then stood. We've just received word from our deep space monitoring station, he announced. They've detected unusual energy signatures at the edge of the solar system. Pattern matches what the Alliance data describes as Voidborn scout ships. The room fell silent. How many? Admiral Howard asked. 3 so far, Mitchell replied. Small vessels, likely just an advance reconnaissance force. We're not ready, someone said. Natalie stepped forward. We're more ready than they expect us to be. We knew this was coming. Now we have a chance to test our defenses against their scouts before the main force arrives. President Mitchell nodded. Admiral Howard, General Owens, you have authorization to engage these scouts with whatever forces we have available. Let's show these Voidborn what happens when they threaten Earth. As the meeting broke up, Natalie looked at the global defense readiness display. Earth was far from fully prepared, but the first pieces were in place. The Voidborn thought they were approaching a helpless, primitive world. They were about to learn their first lesson about humanity. 4 months after the alien warning, the first joint Earth Defense Force base opened on the Moon. Scientists and engineers from countries that had once been enemies now worked side by side. They studied the alien technology and adapted it to work with Earth's existing systems. Dr. Kate Barnes wiped sweat from her face as she examined the new weapon. Her team had been working to combine the Alliance's advanced particle technology with Earth's existing weapons. The power use is still too high, she told Colonel Eric Winters, who stood nearby watching. We've made it 3 times better than our first design, but it still uses too much energy for long battles. What about the idea from the Chinese team? Eric asked. Kate nodded. We're trying that now. It should make it 50% better if it works. All across Earth and throughout the solar system, similar work continued day and night. Mining operations on asteroids provided materials for the rapidly growing space shipyards. Mars became a testing ground for new engines. The outer planets now hosted early warning systems. In Washington, D.C., President Mitchell addressed the United Nations Security Council. The Voidborn think they're hunting weak prey, he said. But humanity has never been prey. We've spent our history fighting each other, our environment, our limits. Now we have a common enemy and a deadline. I've seen the progress reports. We're adapting alien technology faster than its creators thought possible. In orbit around Jupiter, test pilot Amanda Reyes pushed a prototype fighter through movements that would have killed pilots from the Alliance species. The human brain and body, developed through thousands of years of evolution as persistent hunters, allowed for reaction times that amaze the Alliance scientists who had joined Earth's cause. The systems are holding, she reported as her ship pulled forces that would crush normal humans. I can push it harder. In weapons labs across the planet, researchers discovered that the Voidborn's biological parts, which had helped them adapt against the Alliance's energy weapons, were very vulnerable to certain Earth chemicals. The Alliance had never considered chemical approaches, thinking them primitive and wrong. Humanity had fewer such concerns when facing extinction. As Earth prepared, the first real test came sooner than expected. The Voidborn scout ships entered the outer solar system, moving slowly and carefully as they scanned for signs of advanced technology. Admiral Max Howard stood in the command center beneath the Rocky Mountains. Large screens showed the positions of Earth's defensive systems and the approaching Voidborn scouts. "Are the outer defenses ready?" he asked. Lieutenant Frank Porter nodded. "Yes, sir. The automated platforms around Pluto are operational. They're running in passive mode, so the Voidborn shouldn't detect them until they're activated." "And our ships?" "The first squadron is in position behind Neptune's moon Triton. 6 ships all equipped with the prototype weapons. Captain Roy Wilson commands the squadron." Howard nodded. "Let's see how our defenses hold up against their scouts. If we can destroy them quickly, we might buy ourselves more time before their main fleet arrives." He pressed a button on the command console. "Captain Wilson, you are cleared to engage when the enemy is in range. Remember, we want to test different weapon configurations to see which ones work best." "Understood, Admiral," came the reply. "My ships are ready. We'll give these aliens a proper Earth welcome." On the bridge of the EDF Dauntless, Captain Roy Wilson watched as the Voidborn scouts approached Neptune's orbit. His ship and 5 others waited in the shadow of Triton, hidden from the aliens' sensors. "Weapon status?" he asked his second-in-command. "All ships report weapons hot," replied Commander Susan Lee. "Each vessel is equipped with different weapon types as ordered. We have energy, kinetic, and chemical options ready." "Good," Wilson said. "Let's see which ones work best. All ships maintain communication blackout until my mark. We hit them hard and fast, then see how they respond." The Voidborn scouts moved closer, completely unaware of the human ships waiting for them. According to the Alliance data, the Voidborn had never encountered serious resistance from a pre-spacefaring civilization before. They expected to find primitive satellites and perhaps a few basic spacecraft, not organized military resistance. When the scouts reached the planned interception point, Wilson gave the order, "All ships engage now." The 6 Earth ships emerged from behind Triton and accelerated toward the Voidborn scouts. The aliens reacted immediately, their ships turning to face the unexpected threat. "They're powering up weapons," reported the sensor. "Officer, fire first salvo," Wilson ordered. Each Earth ship fired different weapons. The Dauntless used energy weapons based on Alliance designs but modified with rapidly changing frequencies. The Valiant fired kinetic projectiles, simple in design but moving at incredible speeds. The other ships used variations or combinations. 2 of the Voidborn scouts were hit immediately. One exploded as a kinetic round punctured its hull. The Faust other spun wildly as an energy beam disrupted its systems. The 3rd scout returned fire. A beam of energy shot toward the Earthship defender. The ship's shields based on Alliance technology flickered but held. "They're adapting to our energy weapons," reported Commander Lee. "Shield frequencies are shifting." "Switch to secondaries," Wilson ordered. The Earthships changed tactics. As the Voidborn adapted to one weapon type, the humans switched to another. This was the strategy they had developed based on the Alliance data. The Voidborn were excellent at finding perfect solutions to known problems, but struggled with rapidly changing situations. The battle continued for 20 minutes. 1 Earth. Ship the Guardian suffered heavy damage and had to retreat, but all 3 Voidborn scouts were eventually destroyed. "Collect all battle data," Wilson ordered as his ships regrouped. "We need to analyze everything. Which weapons worked best, how quickly they adapted, weak points in their shields." Back on Earth, Admiral Howard received the battle report with mixed feelings. The victory was good news, but the Voidborn scouts had adapted quickly to Earth's weapons, even the modified ones. "They learned fast," he told General Natalie Owens. "By the 3rd exchange, they had already adapted to our energy weapons and were working on counters to our kinetic ones." "But we won," Natalie pointed out. "Against scouts, yes. The main fleet will be much more difficult. And now they know we're not as primitive as they thought." Natalie studied the battle data on her screen. "Look at this pattern, though. Each time we switched weapon types, it took them approximately 45 seconds to adapt. If we can keep changing faster than that..." Howard nodded slowly. "We might have a chance. We need more ships, more weapon types, and better coordination." "Then that's what we'll get," Natalie said firmly. "The first lunar shipyard comes online next week. The Mars defense grid will be operational in a month. We're making progress. Howard looked back at the screen showing the debris of the Void-born scouts floating in space near Neptune. Let's hope it's enough. Now that they know we can fight back, they'll send more next time, a lot more. Natalie stood straight, her face determined. Then we'll be ready for them. Humanity didn't come this far to be wiped out by some hive-mind aliens who think we're easy prey. As they spoke, the automated systems throughout the solar system continued their work. Defenses grew stronger daily. New ships took shape in orbit. Weapon systems were tested and improved. Earth was preparing for the greatest fight in human history. The Void-born overseer moved its four upper limbs in a pattern that signaled deep thought. The holographic display before it showed the small solar system where they had lost 3 scout ships. The third planet had shown unexpected resistance. This was unusual. Dispatch harvester units, the overseer commanded. Standard assimilation protocols. In normal circumstances, the Void-born would have sent just one harvester to deal with a primitive world. But the loss of the scouts suggested caution. 3 mid-sized harvesters would be more than enough to handle whatever defenses this planet had managed to build. The Void-born did not feel emotions as humans understood them. But if they had, they would have felt confidence bordering on arrogance. They had defeated the mighty Galactic Alliance, with its centuries of advanced technology. A primitive world that had just discovered space travel would be easy to conquer. They were wrong. At the edge of the solar system, the first wave of Void-born ships encountered something unexpected: mines hidden throughout the Kuiper Belt. These weapons combined Alliance shielding technology with Earth's nuclear power. The explosions destroyed 2 smaller ships immediately. The Void-born fleet adjusted quickly. Their ships spread out to avoid the mine clusters. The 3 harvesters stayed in the middle, protected by the smaller craft around them. On the bridge of the Earth Defense Force flagship Defiance, Admiral Howard watched the enemy's approach on the main screen. "They're being more careful now," said Commander Jack Russell. "Spreading out to avoid our mines." Howard nodded. "Just as we expected. Initiate Phase 2. Throughout the solar system, Earth's forces moved into position. Every planet from Neptune to Mars now had defense platforms circling it. These platforms looked simple from the outside, but each contained different weapon systems that could be switched quickly. The first real battle began near Uranus. A group of Void-born ships approached the planet, scanning for Earth defenses. The platforms remained powered down until the last moment, then activated all at once. Energy beams, kinetic projectiles, and chemical weapons fired from dozens of positions simultaneously. The Void-born ships tried to adapt, but each time they adjusted their shields against one weapon type, they were hit by another. On a small Earth ship hiding behind one of Uranus's moons, Captain Laura Boyd watched as her tactical display showed the battle unfolding. "The defense platforms are working," she told her crew. "The Void-born are trying to adapt, but they can't keep up with all the different weapon types." She studied the enemy movement patterns. The Void-born ships were pulling back, regrouping around one of the harvesters. "They're changing tactics," Laura said, "pulling their forces closer together for better protection." She smiled slightly. "That's exactly what we wanted." Laura opened a communication channel to command. "Boyd to command. The Void-born are clustering near Sector 7. Request permission to implement Operation Scattered Shot." "Permission granted," came the reply. "All ships, prepare to engage on Boyd's mark." Laura turned to her weapons officer. "Target the outer ships first. We want to create confusion in their communication network." Around Uranus, 12 Earth ships emerged from hiding places behind moons and within the planet's rings. They attacked from different directions at once, each using different weapons and constantly changing their attack patterns. The Void-born tried to respond, but their usual strategy of quick adaptation failed against an enemy that never used the same approach twice. Their ships began to take damage. Near Saturn, a similar battle unfolded. The Void-born had sent one of their harvesters to investigate the ringed planet's unusual energy readings. They found another trap waiting for them. Captain Roy Wilson, who had led the first successful attack against the scout ships, now commanded a larger force of 20 ships. They had been hiding within Saturn's rings, the ice particles masking their energy signatures. "The Harvester is approaching the target," Sohn reported his second-in-command. Wilson nodded. "All ships, prepare to execute attack pattern Delta. Remember, keep changing your weapon configurations. Don't give them time to adapt." The Earth ships burst from Saturn's rings like angry wasps from a disturbed nest. They surrounded the much larger Harvester, firing from all directions. The Harvester was powerful. Its weapons destroyed 3 Earth ships in the first minutes of battle, but it couldn't track all the smaller, faster human vessels as they darted around it, attacking from unexpected angles. "They're adapting to our energy weapons," Wilson announced to all ships. "Switch to kinetics and chemicals now." The Earth ships changed tactics instantly. Missiles and projectiles replaced energy beams. The Harvester's shields, optimized to block energy attacks, were less effective against solid objects moving at high speeds. "We've breached their outer hull," reported the sensor officer as a particularly large projectile punctured the Harvester's side. "Target that breach point," Wilson ordered. "All ships concentrate fire." The Earth ships focused their attacks on the damaged section. The Harvester tried to rotate to protect its vulnerable area, but the human pilots anticipated this move and adjusted their positions faster than the larger ship could turn. More projectiles and missiles slammed into the breach. Then Wilson gave a new order. "Deploy the bioagents, special missiles containing compounds designed to attack the Voidborn's biological components, fired into the open wound in the Harvester's hull. These weren't conventional explosives, but carefully engineered biological and chemical agents created specifically to target the organic elements of Voidborn technology. The effect was dramatic. The Harvester's movements became erratic. Its weapons fired randomly or not at all. Its shields fluctuated wildly. "It's working!" someone shouted over the communication channel. Wilson remained focused. "Maintain distance. That thing could still be dangerous." He was right to be cautious. In its death throes, the Harvester released a massive energy pulse that destroyed 2 more Earth ships that had ventured too close. But then the massive alien vessel went dark, drifting lifelessly among Saturn's rings. Back on Earth in the underground command center, Admiral Howard and General Owens watched the battles unfold across the solar system. "We've destroyed 1 Harvester and damaged another," Howard reported to President Mitchell. "The 3rd is still near Neptune, moving cautiously." "Casualties?" the President asked. 7 ships lost, 3 more heavily damaged. "Approximately 200 personnel." Mitchell nodded grimly. "A high cost, but less than we expected." "The Voidborn are already adapting," Natalie warned. "They're being more careful now, keeping their distance and probing our defenses methodically." "That gives us more time," Howard pointed out. "Every day they spend testing our outer defenses is another day for our inner system preparations to improve." On the main screen, they watched as Earth forces regrouped after the battle. The destroyed Harvester was being towed toward a research facility orbiting Europa, where scientists would study its technology and biology. "What's the status of the Voidborn main fleet?" Mitchell asked. Howard brought up another display. "Our long-range sensors show significant movement. They've diverted ships from other sectors. The Overseer is taking us seriously now." Mitchell's expression remained determined. "How long until they arrive?" "At current speeds, approximately 2 weeks. Then we have 2 weeks to prepare our final defenses," Mitchell said. "The real test is still to come." As they spoke, the Voidborn Overseer was reaching a similar conclusion. For the first time in its existence, it experienced something close to confusion. How could a primitive species inflict such damage? The answer would require more information, and the gathering of that information would require more resources than anticipated. The Overseer issued new commands. The primary fleet, originally bound for the former Alliance core worlds, changed course. Earth had just become the Voidborn's main target. The main Voidborn fleet arrived in the solar system 3 days later. Hundreds of massive ships appeared at the edge of the system. They moved with perfect coordination, spreading out to surround Earth's defenses in a sphere of approaching destruction. On Earth, civilians watched the skies with fear and determination. Despite efforts to move people to underground shelters, Billions remained on the surface, waiting to learn if humanity would survive. In the command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, President Mitchell joined Admiral Howard and General Owens for what might be humanity's last stand. "All ships report ready," Howard said. "The Voidborn will be in firing range within 30 minutes. Mitchell nodded grimly. "Are the ground-based systems ready?" "Yes, sir. The lunar cannons are charged. The Mars defense grid is operational." As they prepared for battle, an unexpected message came through, using Alliance communication protocols. "This is Captain Samuel Wright of the Alliance Resistance. We've heard reports of major Voidborn fleet movements toward the Sol system. We're on our way with all available ships. Hold if you can." Howard allowed himself a small smile. "Seems your message got through to more than just us, Mr. President." "Let's make sure they don't arrive too late," Mitchell replied. "Start Operation Hornet's Nest." The Earth fleet, instead of forming a defensive line as the Voidborn expected, suddenly accelerated toward the enemy in small, scattered groups. The attack pattern seemed chaotic, even suicidal, causing the Voidborn to hesitate momentarily as they tried to understand this strange tactic. That hesitation was enough. Earth's ships closed to very close range before launching their main weapons. Not the energy weapons the Voidborn had adapted to, but swarms of small drones carrying specially engineered biological and chemical agents designed to attack the organic parts of Voidborn technology. While the Alliance species had considered such tactics wrong and primitive, humanity embraced them as necessary for survival. The Voidborn's biological circuits, which allowed them to quickly adapt to normal weapons, proved extremely vulnerable to these attacks. Ship after ship in the Voidborn fleet began to malfunction as their organic components died. Some exploded, others drifted powerless. The unified Voidborn mind, which had never experienced an attack at this basic level, started to break apart as connection nodes failed. Earth's fleet took heavy losses, nearly 60% destroyed in the first wave. But the Voidborn suffered worse. For the first time in their long campaign, they faced an enemy willing to sacrifice everything and use methods they considered unthinkable. On the bridge of the EDF Defender, Captain Laura Boyd watched as her ship's last drones launched toward a massive Voidborn command vessel. "Direct hit," reported her weapons officer. "Their shields are failing. Target their main hull breach with all remaining weapons," Laura ordered. The Defender fired everything it had left at the wounded Voidborn ship. Other Earth vessels joined the attack, concentrating fire on the same weak point. The command vessel's outer hull cracked open, exposing its inner systems to space and to the biological agents that Earth had deployed. The massive ship's lights flickered and went dark. As the battle reached its peak, a new fleet appeared at the edge of the system, the promised Alliance reinforcements. Captain Wright had gathered the scattered survivors, and they arrived to find not the expected ruins of another conquered world, but a fierce battle with the Voidborn in disarray. "This is impossible," said Wright's second-in-command as they approached. "The humans should have been overwhelmed hours ago." Wright smiled. "I tried to tell the Council. Humanity doesn't fight like we do." The combined Earth and Alliance forces pressed their advantage. With the Voidborn coordination disrupted, individual ships became vulnerable to conventional tactics. One by one, then in groups, the mighty fleet that had conquered a dozen advanced civilizations began to retreat. In the aftermath, as damage reports came in and casualty lists grew, Admiral Howard met with Captain Wright aboard the Defiance. "We lost nearly 700 ships and over 2 million personnel," Howard reported. "But Earth still stands." "The Alliance lost thousands of worlds and trillions of lives," Wright replied. "But today marks the beginning of the Voidborn's end. They've never retreated before, never experienced failure on this scale. The shock to their collective mind will take time to recover from, and when they do, by then," Wright said, looking at the busy reconstruction efforts already underway around Earth, "I suspect humanity will be ready for them. The Alliance Council always feared your species might be too aggressive, too unpredictable for galactic society. Today proved those same qualities might save us all." President Mitchell joined them on the observation deck, watching as Earth rotated below, damaged but undefeated. Captain Wright, the United Nations has voted. Earth will join the alliance not as a junior member but as a full partner. We bring fewer ships and less advanced technology than other species, but we offer something equally valuable. A different way of thinking. Wright nodded. The Void-born adapted to everything the Alliance threw at them over centuries. You forced them to retreat in a single battle. Because you warned us, Howard added. Gave us time to prepare. I gave you information, Wright corrected. What you did with it was uniquely human. The Alliance spent generations seeking perfect defenses and elegant solutions. You embraced the chaos of warfare and used everything at your disposal, no matter how unconventional. As they spoke, reports arrived from across the galaxy. Hearing of Earth's victory, other worlds that had surrendered to the Void-born were rising up, using Earth's tactics. Alliance remnants were regrouping, emboldened by the news. The war isn't over, Mitchell acknowledged. But for the first time, there's hope. 2 weeks later, a new joint command was established. Earth and Alliance ships patrolled together, with humans teaching their allies about unpredictability and unconventional tactics, while the Alliance shared their advanced technology. In a new shipyard orbiting Mars, Dr. Kate Barnes worked alongside Alliance engineers to create a new generation of weapons that combined human creativity with alien technology. The biological approach was effective, said Kelnar, the Alteran scientist who had once declared the war lost. But if we combine it with phase shift technology, Kate nodded. We could bypass their shields entirely. Let's try it. On the diplomatic front, Samuel Wright, now promoted to Admiral of the Joint Fleet, presented Earth's case to the rebuilt Alliance Council. Humanity saved us when we had given up, he told the gathered representatives. Their methods may seem primitive, or even barbaric to some of you, but their results are undeniable. The Void-born retreated for the first time in this war. The Council voted to accept Earth as a full member of the Alliance. Some members did so reluctantly, still uncomfortable with humanity's aggressive approach to warfare. Others embraced the new ally enthusiastically, seeing them as the key to finally defeating the Void-born. As for the Void-born themselves, they withdrew to their core systems to recover and adapt. But this time, they faced an enemy that would always be one step ahead, an enemy that understood the value of unpredictability, that embraced chaos rather than fearing it. The Void-born had celebrated victory too soon. They had conquered the ordered, predictable alliance with methodical precision. But against the chaotic, determined force that was humanity, their perfect strategies fell apart. The war would continue, but the tide had turned. The enemies had celebrated victory. Then humanity joined the battle.